My name's Tom Lyon. I've been at USC Law School since 1995. I'm a professor of law and psychology because my background includes the JD, of course, but also a PhD in developmental psychology. My area is child witnesses, and my career goal has been to maximize children's ability to give complete and accurate reports when narrating their experiences, with a special focus on children who've been abused. I have to admit, I didn't really like law school very much, and I was thinking about quitting. I was going to try out for law review, and then I thought, wait, why am I doing this? Why am I spending 40 hours more a week working? Because that's what the estimate was of the amount of time it would take. So instead of doing the write-on competition, this was the end of my first year, I went to a used bookstore and I found a copy of Freud's Interpretation of Dreams. Now, nobody in psychology reads Freud anymore, but I didn't know anything about psychology at the time, and I became really interested in psychology. So my second and third year, I mixed in psychology classes with my law classes, and I started to really enjoy law because I could find another discipline from which one could criticize legal rules and procedures. I became particularly interested in children. That was more of a personal thing. It was like I would go to restaurants and I would notice little kids and I'd say, wow, how fascinating they are. The idea that they're these little humans in development. And so that and the developmental psych class I took while a law student got me super interested in that area. I decided then for my third year paper to write it about something that, whatever it is where children interact most with the law. It turns out, sadly, to be cases of child abuse, because those are the cases where we really have to rely on child as witnesses. And that encouraged me to do that as a career. So when I got out of law school, I came out to LA. I always wanted to live in Los Angeles. And I started making phone calls. First, I called the DA's office and I said I wanted to specialize in child abuse cases. And they laughed at me saying, oh, maybe we'll let you do that, but you got to do 2 years of this, 2 years of that. Nobody stays in child abuse very long because they burn out. But they told me about dependency, something I hadn't learned about in law school. And dependency is where children are typically removed from the custody of their parents because of abuse and neglect. And Los Angeles County has the largest dependency court in the world. So I walked over to dependency court. I got a job there and started doing dependency trials, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, the cases are horrifying, but you're working with really sweet children. It was fascinating working with law enforcement and social workers, and of course, the therapists and other psychologists who would evaluate kids. And I decided to go back to school, got a PhD in developmental psychology, got the job at USC, and ever since I've been working on ways in which we can improve the process by which children are witnesses. Throughout my career, I've always been inspired by children's resilience. And so, we do a lot of interviews with children who are accusing parents and typically step parents, mothers, boyfriends of sexual abuse. And those are, of course, incredibly depressing stories. But we always start by building rapport with the children. And they're still kids. And they still have that just childish fascination, curiosity, enjoyment. We spend a lot of time building rapport with them by asking them about things they like to do and asking them about their birthday. And, these are children who've gone through horrible traumas, but are still fully capable of enjoying life. And that's inspiring, right? Because our job is, when we interview them, is to help them get out of this situation where they're being abused. And it really makes you feel optimistic about the opportunity for victims to recuperate, to get better. And so, and that's been a theme, throughout everything that I've done. I'm always inspired by the resilience of children. I would say to students who might not love the law to recognize that the law isn't something that has to be inherently interesting to you. Rather, what's important is to recognize how powerful the law is, how much good or bad you can do with the law. And what I'd recommend is that you find an area, like I did, you find a subject that's not legal, but just is a social problem or a situation that people face that you find interesting and that you care about. And then all of a sudden, everything about law that relates to that becomes interesting. And it becomes interesting not because it's inherently interesting, but because you recognize how powerful a tool it is and how successful you can be if you learn the intricacies of that tool, if you learn the insides and outs of the legal doctrine. And for me, that's evidence. And so I love teaching evidence now because I tell my students, if you know evidence better than your adversary, you're going to win. And of course, in our cases, winning means protecting a child. And that's obviously immensely important. So law doesn't have to be interesting, but you want to find something you care about, and then you use law as a means of succeeding.